everyone, welcome back to the Dannphan channel. We have another comic review for you, and it is the Silverwing graphic novel. Look at it in all its glory. This was sent over to me by Senegar himself, the artist on the project. And I didn't really go into this graphic novel with a lot of familiarity with the Silverwing trilogy book series. But I do know that it also had an animated series, and looking back and forth between the animated series character designs and the character designs that Chris went with here, I actually think I like these better. I like the illustrations better in the graphic novel. And it's interesting because Senegar does make them look more like bats than the animated series kind of makes them look. And some people would think that that would make them hard to distinguish from one another if they all just look like bats, but I didn't really have that issue at all. So Silverwing follows the story of the main character Shade, who is a bat, and bats have been kind of banished from flying out during the daytime because that is the law given by the owls.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
And if any bats are caught flying around during daytime, the owls will kill the shit out of them. And unfortunately, Shade is one of those bats who is caught getting a glimpse of the sun. They respond by burning down their roost. Where did the owls get the fire from? So his colony has to leave to go find another roost, and winter is coming anyway, so they're already going to be heading south. However, during the journey, Shade gets separated from the rest of his colony. He ends up meeting another girl bat who is helping him on his journey to get back to his colony, but of course they are running into trouble along the way. It kind of reminds me of one of those more classic fairy tales where it's about an adventure. A lot of the story pieces that contribute to a character's development has to do with different stops they make along the way. A lot of that is mimicked throughout Silverwing. That idea of, okay, we run into this problem, we get out of it this way, and then we run into a new problem. And eventually they come face to face with the main villain of the book, another bat who is named Goth, and he is a cannibal. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. He eats much larger creatures than Shade does. While as they usually eat bugs and survive on just that, Goth goes after owls and rats, and of course, yeah, other bats, which also contributes to him being a much larger creature and much more deadly. And in the end, how they defeat the villain, it feels kind of fair. It's not so much a friendship is magic type of ending boss fight, you know, it's not really shown in style how they get away from the villain. But a lot of this book really does kind of remind me of kind of maybe old school Disney films that feature animal-centric characters, or even maybe Don Bluth films are a little bit more echoed with this writing. It does go a few shades darker than most Disney films would go, but I think overall it still is probably safe for general audiences. Obviously, if you are a parent, feel free to look through the pages and see yourself if you're okay with your kids reading something that gets a little bit bloody. But I didn't feel like the gore was too over the top. I imagine most people who have been reading the Silverwing trilogy series were probably preteens, if I were to take a guess. And of course, like I said, as this is a trilogy series, we do get a cliffhanger by the time we reach the end of the graphic novel. A lot of questions not really quite answered. And the villain is not really dead, he's just momentarily defeated, which means you gotta wait till book 2 and to figure out what happens. Now, do they have plans to adapt book 2 into another graphic novel like this? I'm not really sure, but I would be down for reading another book if they do make a book 2. I did genuinely enjoy it, and I was a little bit skeptical going into it, to be honest, because a lot of the time I find that these animal-centric stories that I typically see being promoted around that are new, typically they follow the same trend of trying to do a show with furry characters but then make them edgy, and, you know, they use guns and stuff. and they have sex. Oh, so edgy with your furry characters. I'm not really super into that type of writing when it comes to animal-centric characters, but I can deal with Don Bluth style. That's all well and good for me. Honestly, I was surprised to look at the back of the book and find out that this is only like $14, considering how thick this is, and also all the art is fully colored and everything. The printing is overall pretty good quality. There's just one thing about this that confuses me as far as the quality goes. The cover is super top-notch, like 1200 DPI, right? But then you get to the back cover, and everything looks fine except for the two main characters. They look super pixelated. Yeah, probably doesn't show up very well on the camera because everything is just kind of pixelated. But the two characters on the back of this book are very pixely looking comparative to the rest of the cover, which looks great and really high quality. Speaking of pixelated, look at me. Overall, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with the graphic novel. I had fun reading it. I assume some stuff is being cut down from the official novel. There was this one scene that struck me in particular that I thought, oh man, there must be like some space and time missing here that must have been cut down for the graphic novel version. Basically, it's one of those typical goodbye scenes between the two characters before they meet up again, and oh, it's so great that they're meeting up again. There's a scene like that in the book where there's an emotional goodbye, but then they meet like literally 2 pages later again, and it's an emotional get together, and it doesn't have the same impact because not that much time has actually passed in the graphic novel. And maybe that's something different in the original books. I never read the original books, you know? But I think that reading this has been a overall very positive introduction into the series. I love how he really like interprets this idea of bats communicating with one another with these sounds, and the idea of them spreading this information or creating a map of information with one another by singing these songs. And Steiniger interpreted this as actually being like these pretty looking rainbow-like colors that create an image. And of course, you know, it's like metaphorical. It's not actually like creating the rainbow image, but it's just a sound that they're hearing. But it's a very nice way of interpreting that so that you can see it in a visual medium like a comic. It's also really neat when we switch into like night vision for certain scenes, angry red tones during certain scenes. Everything's done really top-notch. And it adds so much to the story. So while I may be extremely biased having only read this, I would say you should check out this series by first reading the graphic novel. And there is my endorsement for Silverwing. Go check it out if you haven't already, if you're interested in it. Thank you for watching my little review. Go check out Burning Star Comics. Join the fan club if you'd like to see sneak peeks of new comics coming out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Program restart.